Imagine rolling up to the starting grid of the Monaco Grand Prix, right?
Right.
And your lead mechanic leans into the cockpit and whispers, like, so the engine is 40 years old, the steering wheel is visibly cracked, and we literally glued the tires on this morning. Good luck out there.
That's a terrifying scenario.
Right. But that's exactly the reality facing the titans of international football right now.
It really is. I mean, it's a miracle the wheels even turn at this level, you know? We constantly talk about the aura of world-class talent, but we kind of just ignore the mechanism underneath it all.
Yeah, we totally do.
Because at this stage of the cycle, that talent is precariously balanced on top of medical tape, hastily administered painkillers, and just, well, sheer unfiltered hope.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a highly opinionated, honestly, incredibly sharp-witted World Cup preview from a source we absolutely love reading, which is the Armchair Galáctico.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It is. We've got a comprehensive scouting report on Group L. That's the final group of the tournament, featuring England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama.
And for you, the listener, this deep dive is, it's basically a masterclass in how radically different nations attempt to solve the ultimate footballing puzzle. Like, how do you balance undeniable generational talent with the cruel realities of aging squads and sudden, devastating injuries?
Yeah, and let's be clear about the vibe of the source material we're working with today. The Armchair Galáctico doesn't just, hand us a spreadsheet of dry possession stats.
No, not at all.
It's written with this edgy, dry, pub-style humor by a supremely confident but also wonderfully self-deprecating, couch-bound expert. We get these deep tactical blueprints. We get brutally honest, fatal flaws for every single team. And we get some massive, unabashed hot takes.
Generous amounts of hot takes, yeah.
Definitely. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the power dynamics of Group L, we have to start with Thomas Tuchel's England.
What's fascinating here is the Galactico drops a massive hot take right out of the gate. They claim this is the most likable and coherent England squad in a lifetime.
Which is wild. I mean, considering England's history of massive hype followed by spectacular meltdowns, that feels like a setup for a punchline.
It really does.
But the author backs it up by highlighting Tuchel's, his ruthless decision-making. Tuchel prioritized current form and structural fit over pure reputation. He famously left out massive media darling stars like Phil Foden and Cole Palmer after they had, underwhelming club seasons.
And that decision, I mean, it sent shockwaves through the English press.
Oh, absolute chaos.
Yeah. Historically, England suffers from what you could call golden generation syndrome. Past managers have folded to immense public pressure, basically cramming every single famous attacker onto the pitch at the exact same time, regardless of whether those players actually complement each other tactically.
Right, but I hear what you're saying about prioritizing structure, but let me push back on this a bit. Isn't that just a convenient excuse for a manager who couldn't figure out how to manage elite egos? I mean, dropping big names like Foden, doesn't that look like waving a white flag because you can't solve the puzzle? If England loses, the media is going to absolutely crucify him for leaving those weapons behind.
Well, it is a massive gamble, for sure. But it's a necessary one if you look at the tactical geometry of the pitch. Foden and Palmer, they both naturally want to drift into that number 10 space.
The area right in the middle.
Exactly, just outside the penalty box. If they both play, they crowd the center. They literally end up tripping over each other.
And that forces the striker out of position.
Precisely. It forces Harry Kane to drop deep just to find the ball, which leaves nobody in the actual penalty box to score.
Right, which defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah. So by dropping those redundant playmakers, Tuchel brought in Bukayo Saka to play out wide. The source calls Saka a one-on-one terror.
Oh, I love that description.
It's so accurate. Because Saka stays wide on the touchline, he physically stretches the opposition's defense laterally. And that creates the open grass in the middle of the pitch for Jude Bellingham to make his driving runs. And crucially, it keeps Harry Kane up top where he belongs.
So it isn't about punishing Foden. It's about building a framework for the talent you do actually play. It's like a band that finally stopped relying on expensive pyrotechnics and just learned to play their instruments together.
That's a great way to put it.
And Kane is arriving in terrifying form. He's coming off a 40-goal season at Bayern Munich, and he's captaining the side at a record-tying third World Cup, equaling Billy Wright's all-time record. Add Declan Rice anchoring the midfield with his Premier League authority, and man, it sounds like a fortress.
It does, but it's a fortress with a very flimsy backdoor. Which brings us to the Galactico's fatal flaw for England, their medical ward at fullback. Yeah. Tuchel is trusting recoveries for Tino Livramento, who has a lingering thigh issue, Reece James, who is nursing yet another hamstring problem, and incredibly, Djed Spence, who literally broke his jaw just days before the squad announcement.
Wait, a broken jaw?
A broken jaw!
I am struggling to understand the logic there. How does a manager justify bringing 3 half-broken fullbacks to a high-intensity summer tournament? If the position is so critical, why not just bring healthy, slightly less talented players?
Because in modern football systems, fullbacks aren't just wide defenders anymore. They are the entire engine of a team's width and ball progression. If you play a narrow front line with wingers who cut inside, your fullbacks have to provide the overlapping threat down the line.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if they aren't match sharp, they just can't make those explosive overlapping runs.
But what if they get hurt mid-game?
That is the nightmare scenario. If a hamstring tweaks in the 70th minute against high-level opposition, you lose your width instantly. The defense collapses inward, you lose your outball, and the opponent essentially traps you in your own half. England's historic issue has never been a lack of raw talent.
Right.
Their issue is whether the supporting cast and the physical structure crumble under tournament pressure.
Wow. Okay, so if England is betting their entire tournament on youthful reinvention and a brittle new tactical structure, the team sitting directly across from them represents the exact opposite philosophy.
Zlatko Dalic's Croatia, the Vetrani.
Exactly. If Ghana and Panama are hoping for a miracle, Croatia relies on an ancient, unshakable tournament pedigree that simply cannot be taught.
I mean, they were finalists in 2018 and semi-finalists in 2022. It defies all conventional football logic for a nation of that size to consistently go that deep.
Totally.
And it all revolves around their captain, Luka Modric.
Modric is 40 years old. He's tying the all-time record of appearing in 6 World Cups, joining an exclusive club with Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. And he is doing this while recovering from a fractured cheekbone he suffered late in the season at AC Milan.
Incredible.
He's out there playing in a protective mask. The Galáctico's hot take for Croatia is that Modric will be the best player on the pitch at least once in this group stage, broken face and all. The author writes, the Galáctico has stopped trying to explain Luka Modric and started simply enjoying him.
It is a beautiful sentiment for a legendary player, but it masks a very deep vulnerability in the Croatian setup.
Okay, let me challenge this whole eternal engine narrative the media loves to spin about Croatia. I see them like this antique grandfather clock that somehow keeps perfect time, but at what point does experience cross the line into just being a physical liability?
Right.
Can a 40-year-old genuinely dictate the tempo against 20-somethings who can sprint twice as fast for an entire month in the summer heat?
That is exactly the fatal flaw the source highlights. To survive at 40, Modric has to play like an aging chess grandmaster. He knows he doesn't have the physical speed to chase the game anymore, so he dictates the tempo to ensure he never has to sprint.
Ah, so he changes the rules of engagement.
Yes. He receives the ball and passes it to areas that force the game to slow down to his preferred walking pace. Croatia's entire blueprint is to never panic, control the tempo, and literally drag opponents into a slow, grinding rhythm.
So they're essentially forcing everyone else to play their slow-motion game.
Exactly.
And they get a huge tactical boost in doing that because Gvardiol is returning from a broken shin.
Gvardiol is crucial to this slow-motion strategy. He provides elite recovery pace and aerial command from the center-back position.
Right.
Because he is so fast and so good on the ball, he takes an enormous amount of physical pressure off that aging midfield. They don't have to drop as deep to defend because Gvardiol sweeps up behind them.
But going back to your point about the 40-year-old body, if Modric has even one off night, or if a team successfully speeds up the game past his comfort zone, what happens?
The entire identity falters. Croatia doesn't have a plan B. If Modric is rattled, or if his body simply fails him on a humid Tuesday night, the rest of the team loses its metronome. They just don't have the raw pace to win a track meet.
Which makes matchday 1 an absolute pressure cooker. England and Croatia face off immediately in Toronto. You have these two highly specific, incredibly fragile dependencies colliding. England's medical ward at fullback against Croatia's masked aging grandmaster.
It is the definitive moment of Group L, and it highlights a massive generational subplot that the Galáctico rightly points out. Jude Bellingham versus Luka Modric.
Oh man, what a matchup.
Right. You have England's brightest, most dynamic young midfielder going head-to-head with the veteran maestro. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this match dictates the stress levels for the rest of the summer.
Wait, I'm looking at this from a broader tournament strategy perspective. Why is the Galactico so obsessed with this specific opening match? Don't both teams play 3 games in the group? Even if one loses, they could just beat Panama and Ghana, right?
On paper, yes, but in a short tournament format, momentum dictates absolutely everything. It alters the physiological reality of the players.
How so?
Well, if you win your opener against your toughest opponent, the math changes entirely. You have 3 points in the bag. You can afford to rotate your squad in the next 2 games. Tuchel could rest his fragile fullbacks. Dalic could give his 40-year-old captain a day off to just ice his legs.
Right, you can manage the minutes, but if you lose...
If you lose, the remaining fixtures turn into a desperate, exhausting scramble. You are forced to play your starters against teams that are going to sit deep and kick you.
Ouch.
Yeah, you risk aggravating those lingering injuries because you are chasing results. The physical toll compounds exponentially, and by the time you reach the knockout rounds, your squad is completely destroyed.
Man, that's brutal. So, if England and Croatia are playing this high-stakes game of physical roulette at the top of the group, the teams caught in their wake, Ghana and Panama, represent a completely different reality.
Very much so.
If Ghana's entire survival relies on trying to salvage a broken playbook after a devastating injury, Panama represents the exact opposite approach. A team with 0 superstars relying entirely on a collective, grinded-out system.
It is a fascinating contrast in how to handle the burden of being an underdog.
Yeah.
Let's look at Carlos Queiroz' Ghana first. The Black Stars. The Galactico calls their situation a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, they lost Mohamed Kudus. He suffered a quad injury playing for Sunderland, had a terrible rehab setback, and now requires surgery. He's just ruled out entirely.
A massive blow.
Huge. The source describes Kudus as their most direct, unpredictable, explosive attacking weapon. So I have to ask, how does a manager actually handle that tactically? You spend 2 years building a team around one guy's explosive dribbling, and 3 weeks before the tournament, he's just gone.
You don't try to rewrite the playbook. You essentially have to collapse it entirely. You instruct your defensive line to drop 10 yards deeper. You have to abandon any high-pressing strategy because you no longer have Kudus' speed to force quick turnovers high up the pitch.
So what do they do instead?
Instead, you pack the midfield, rely heavily on Thomas Partey's physicality to break up the opponent's play, and you play purely for low-percentage counterattacks and set pieces.
Wait, so if you drop your defensive line 10 yards deeper, aren't you just inviting a player like Jude Bellingham or Luka Modric to take target practice from the edge of the penalty box?
Yeah, that is the terrible trade-off Queiroz has to make. You invite pressure to protect your penalty area, just hoping your defensive shape holds. And when you do finally win the ball back, the entire offensive burden shifts onto Antoine Semenyo.
Ah, right. The Galactico's fatal flaw for Ghana is incredibly blunt on this point. They write, you cannot replace Kudus. You just redistribute his absence. Ghana's tournament relies entirely on Semenyo, who is coming off a great season for Manchester City, basically having the best 3 weeks of his life.
Because Semenyo plays a fundamentally different game than Kudus. Kudus is a player who can receive the ball on the halfway line, dribble past 3 defenders, and manufacture a goal out of thin air.
Right, he's a magician.
But Semenyo is a fantastic striker who relies much more on service from his midfielders and his ability to hold up the ball. If Semenyo is isolated up top without Kudus drawing defenders away from him, he is going to be swallowed whole by elite center backs like Shoko Jardiol.
That sounds like an almost impossible tactical burden to place on one player.
It really is.
So then we pivot to Panama. Los Canaleros, managed by Thomas Christensen. It's only their second ever World Cup. In their first appearance in 2018, they went home with 0 points. But the Galactico highlights massive, undeniable growth here. They aren't just showing up for the photos anymore.
Oh, definitely not. They were 2023 CONCACAF Gold Cup finalists, and they reached the 2025 Nations League final. Christensen has built a rigid, highly disciplined system.
And they have a veteran captain in Annabel Godoy, who boasts unbelievable 159 caps. I mean, think about the locker room presence of a guy who has seen 159 international matches.
Insane experience.
Plus, they also have a breakout talent in Carlos Harvey. But they lack that single world-class superstar.
The Galactico's fatal flaw for Panama isn't just about their roster, it is about the environment. The step up in competition is brutal.
It is. Playing a possession-based system in CONCACAF is impressive, but facing the tactical complexity and sheer physical speed of European heavyweights is another universe entirely. Panama's system works wonderfully when they have the ball and can dictate play against regional rivals.
Against England or Croatia.
Against England or Croatia, they just won't have the ball.
And compounding that brutal step-up is the fact that their creative heartbeat, Adalberto Carrasquilla, is carrying a minor injury concern into the tournament. Which is devastating. When you are the underdog against a superior opponent, you need flawless execution and moments of absolute brilliance to survive. Your margin for error is zero.
Right.
If Carrasquilla is even 5% off his game because of that knock, Panama's ability to transition the ball from defense to attack just vanishes. They will just be pinned in their own half for 90 minutes, desperately defending wave after wave of attacks.
Wow. Okay, so we have looked at the tactical blueprints, the fatal flaws, and all the grim medical reports. The Armchair Galáctico has made their final projections for Group L.
Let's hear them.
They predict England tops the group with 7 points. Croatia secures second place with 6 points. Ghana finishes third with 3 points. And Panama goes home last with 1 point.
Yep.
But the author notes Panama will leave with their heads held high, finally securing their first ever World Cup point.
It is a brutally unforgiving group. I mean, every single team is walking a physical tightrope.
They really are. Looking at this entire breakdown, the Galactico's deep dive paints a picture of a World Cup decided less by intricate tactical genius and more by sheer medical triage. Modric's fractured cheekbone, England's recovering fullbacks, Carrasquilla's minor knock, and Kudus's devastating absence.
Yeah.
But reading through all of these injury reports makes me wonder about the broader trajectory of the sport itself.
This raises an important question, honestly, about where international football is heading. With governing bodies constantly expanding these tournaments and club calendars becoming so bloated with extra fixtures that players are physically breaking down before the summer even starts, are we nearing the end of the golden age of international football?
That's a scary thought.
I mean, in 10 years, the World Cup might no longer be a showcase of the absolute best players in peak condition. It might just devolve into a survival of the fittest endurance test, won by whichever nation's B team happens to have the freshest legs left.
That is a bleak but incredibly real possibility for you to mull over as you watch these matches unfold. The Armchair Galáctico has spoken from the couch, but now it's your turn.
Prove them wrong.
Exactly. The source has issued a challenge to you, the listener. Build your own predictions. Prove the couch-bound experts wrong. Head over to bracketmachine.app and use the code Z9U8XX to build your bracket. That is bracketmachine.app, code Z9U8XX. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.